Intermediate Algebra for Statistics, Introduction to Functions, Part 4. Lesson Objective: Determine important characteristics of a function. In this video, we will talk about max and min and intervals where the function is positive and negative. Where is the function positive or negative? The function will be positive whenever it's in the first or second quadrant, or in other words, whenever parts of the graph are above the x-axis. The function will be negative when the function is in the third or fourth quadrant or below the x-axis. So for this example, this is above the x-axis and also this region. So we have two regions that are above the x-axis. So we would say that this function is positive between -3 and -1. That's this region. And also when x is greater than +2. Where this function is negative would be this part of the graph. It is below the x-axis. And this part of the graph. And how do we write these two regions? We would say the function is negative between -1 to 2, and when x is less than -3. Now we don't have equal signs here because when x is 2, y is 0. When x is -1, y is 0. And when x is a -3, y is 0. So these are the x-intercepts, but 0 is neither positive nor negative. Looking at this example, we have three regions where the function is positive. This one, this region, and this region. So the way we'd write these three regions, we would say the function is positive between -1 and 2, when x is less than -3, and when x is greater than about 5.2. Where this function is negative would be this region and this region. So we'd say that the function is negative between -3 to -1 and between 2 and 5.2. Example 12. Use the graph of the function to determine where the function is positive and negative. So for number 1, we see the function is positive from here and here. So there's two regions. Those two regions are from -4 to -3.5 and from a -0.5 to about 4.1. Now the reason why we have an equal to here is because when x is a -4, y is a +2. So it is positive, so we can put an equal sign here. Well, we should put an equal sign here. When x is 3.5, that's 0, and 0 is not positive. Where this function is negative is this part of the graph and this part. Again, we have an endpoint here, so when x is 5, y is a negative number, -3. So that's why we include an equal to sign here. Number 2, there are two regions where this function's positive. This region and this region. So those would be when x is less than negative 1.5 and when x is greater than 3.5. There is only one region where the function is negative, and that's all x values from here to here. So we say that the function is negative from about negative 1.5 to about 3.5. Maximum and minimum of a function. If we are asked to find a maximum or a minimum for a function, that question is asking what is the largest y for the maximum, what is that value, and for the minimum, what is the smallest y value. Let's do an example. Example 13. Use the graph of the function to determine where the function has a maximum and a minimum. So for the first one, we look for the largest y value. For the maximum, and it's here. And for the minimum, we look for the smallest y value, and it is here. So the maximum, y equals 4. For the minimum, it's negative 3. For number 2, because we have arrows here, we do not have a maximum. So we say it doesn't exist, but we do have a minimum, and that's at negative 3. For this function, there isn't a maximum, but there is a minimum at negative 3. This will be our last example. Is this a function? Yes, it passes the vertical line test. For every x, there's one and only one y. What is the domain of this function? It's all numbers between 0 and 10. It can equal 0 and it can equal 10. What is the range? Again, that's the y values, and that's from negative 3 to a positive 3. What are the x-intercepts? We have 3, 1, 2, and 3. So that occurs when x is 1, x is 4, and x is 10. What is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is y equals negative 3. What is the maximum for this function? That occurs here. So y is 3. What is the minimum? That's the smallest y value. That occurs when y is negative 3. Where is this function increasing? This function is increasing or has a positive slope in this region and this region. So there's two parts of the graph, from 0 to 2 and from 7 to 10. Where's this function decreasing? That's a negative slope. That would be all of this. So there's one region where the slope is negative, and that's between 2 and 7. Where is this function positive? That's above the x-axis, so it would be this region, and that's between 1 and 4. Where's the function negative? This region, and also this region, because both these regions are below the x-axis. So from 0 to 1, and we can include 0 because when x is 0, y is a negative number. So finally, in this class, we are going to look at some special types of functions. The first one we looked at is the linear function. In future videos we will look at a special type of function called the quadratic. We'll also look at what's called the exponential function. We will end the course looking at what's called the square root function, or sometimes it's called the radical function. Thanks for watching.